This is actually the beginning of one of my video series. It will be about 5 parts or something, where we are going to look at for some algebra, like solving equations and organizing them, like 5x equals to, let's say, 25, and these things. Or you will also have things like m times x divided by 3 minus 3 divided by, I don't know, b equals to c, and then what's b equal to, and all of the things that you need in order to solve these and to actually organize equations like this. But first, I do not like to really start with this one, because I have a pretty good metaphor here. If we would start with something pretty hard, then it would be like lifting a very 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 heavy dumb barbell. So let's say we have a barbell which is like 300 kg. Yeah, so you have this barbell which is 300 kg, and let's say that this is you. Could you lift that barbell? Yeah, I mean, unless you are like extremely strong, you probably wouldn't be able to do that. So what would you do if your goal was to actually lift it? Well, you wouldn't start with 300 kg, would you? You would go and, like, this is your first barbell. You might start with 50, and then go to, let's say, 100 kg barbell. So yeah, you could go for 100 after that, and they get progressively heavier and heavier and heavier. So it gets harder and harder and harder, and then you would go for a, let's say, 200 kg barbell or something like this. So I would say that you should progressively overload in this exercise. Now, what does this exercise have to do with our studies in algebra? Well, if you have an equation, let's say like m times x divided by, I don't know, b plus 3y divided by c, and then what's like c equal to, this is kind of like this is our 300 kg barbell. This is the equivalent of that, because you probably wouldn't be able to solve this one, would you? This is like 300 kg, and you probably shouldn't start this one. So what my main goal is in this video series is explain basically the logic of algebra, how you can solve something like this, or actual equations, and all of these combined, and should give you a very confident way and very decent knowledge of solving these kind of problems. So first, we have our four basic things that we can usually do. We can add, we can subtract, we can, I mean, let's go with the point for, so this is going to be our multiplication, and this is going to be our division. So these are the four things that we can do. And usually equations have two sides. So I can say that x equals to 5. It's pretty simple. What this means is, this means that you have an x value which is equal to 5. And then these are basically the two sides of the equation. Now, what if you would like to, let's say, add 5 to both sides? Because this is how you are going to organize an equation, and this is how you will try to solve them. Now, if you would like to add 5 to both sides of the equation, this is how you do it, and keep in mind, it's kind of like a scale, I'm not really good at drawing, but let this be our scale for today. So, let's say that this is a scale, like, one that they use on the markets or something like that. So yeah, this is our scale. And you have something here, and you have something here. And these two are the same. These things are equivalent. These things on the two sides of the scale are equal. This is how I would represent it. So these things are equal, and that's what the equal sign represents in our equation. That the two of them, like the scale is in actual balance. Like the two parts are equal. Now, what if I would add 5 to, let's say, this side? So what if I add 5 here? What would happen then? Well, then that side would become heavier than the other side because you would have this thing. This can be like a golden coin or anything that you can think of, and you would also have 5. However, on the other side, you would only have this golden coin or something like this. So actually the left part would be heavier, as you see. It's like down. It's down there. It goes down, and the other part goes up because this is heavier. And that's how equations work basically. If you do something with one side of the scale, you would definitely have to do it on the other side. And this will be like a basic rule for all of our algebra career. So this is something that you should definitely keep in mind. So you can say that x plus 5 equals to 10. Great. Now that we have distinguished this one, let's see something interesting. So you have four of these basic things, and you can use this to organize the parts of the equation, because in order for you to solve an equation, you usually want x. I mean, we don't write it, but it's 1x. So 1 times x equal to something. Now this something can mean, well, essentially a lot of things, but ideally it will be a number like 5 or 7, but it can be a lot of things. It can be a fraction like a half, or it can be a decimal like 0.4, or it can be even something that is harder to imagine, like the square root of 3. That can be equal to x. It can even be something like the square root of 3 divided by 2. This is a pretty interesting number. It's like pretty hard to imagine at first glance that what does the half of the square root of 3 look like. But this can all be it. The main idea is that you need something on the right side, and you only need one x on the left side. That's our main takeaway. Now, how could we actually do this? Well, if you have an equation like x equals to, or let's say something like 5 plus x equals to minus 2x. This is something that you might see. And one of our main rule here is that if you do something on the other side, as I've mentioned earlier, you have to do it on the other side. You have to modify both sides by the same thing. So we have 5 plus x and we have minus 2x. The way we would like to actually organize these kind of equations is that you would have one expression or one thing on one side and the one thing on the other side. So this is something that we might want to solve. But firstly, let's go with something a bit easier. We have x plus 3 equal to, let's go with 7. So we have x plus 3 equal to 7. Now, we only want x on this left side, so we have to do something with this plus 3. Now, if you have, let's say, 3 apples on the table, and you would like to get rid of those 3 apples, what would you do? You would take away 3 apples. So we take away 3, we subtract 3, and of course from both sides. So on the left side, we are going to be left with only x, while on the right side, it's going to be 7 minus 3, which is 4. So we have completed this task. Right now we know that x equals to 4. Pretty cool, right? And this is actually pretty fun. Like I believe it's enjoyable to solve these. They will get harder, but the harder they get, the better you will be at algebra. So they will always be like a nice challenge. Now, something that you should also know is that if you have something like 2x equals to, let's go with 20. Now what do you do? Well, you see that you have 2x basically means 2 times x, but you only want 1x here. So what would you do here? Well, you want to get rid of this times 2. So what do you do to get rid of this times 2? You divide by 2. So as you see, like, if you have plus something, we subtract. If you have minus something, we would add. If you have times something, we would then we would divide. If you multiply something with x, then we could do divide. And if you divide something by x, we could multiply. So you always do the opposite of what's there. And then x would be equal to 10. So great, we have successfully solved this one as well. Super. Now we also have something like x divided by 5. I can write it as in this form as well, but it's like doesn't really matter. I believe most of you could understand what a fraction is. And then we have, let's say, 3/5. We can also say that 3 divided by 5. So, well, you see that you have both sides are divided by 5. So if they are divided by 5, what would you do? Well, you can multiply each side by 5. If you are a bit familiar with fractions, or you like them, this top way of writing it, this is mostly the common one in algebra, and also the better one in my opinion, because it makes multiplying by 5 look a lot more logical. So if you multiply this side, x divided by 5 and times 5. So basically we say that we have x, we divide it by 5, and then we multiply it by 5, so it's like nothing had happened. And in the other side we have 3, which was divided by 5, then multiplied by 5. So these two cancel out each other, as well as these, if you haven't learned it, but I'm sure you did. Sure you have. So yeah, this and this, x equals to 3. Now let's check a last one. Let's delete the board a bit, and let's check the I mean, not this one yet, but the last practice example. We can also say that x plus 2 equals to 8. This is a pretty fun one. So firstly, you should always, if you see something like this, you should always subtract. We can subtract 2 from both sides, so we can say that x equals to 6. Now what if we have 2x plus 2? These are just some quick practice example. I'm sure you have understood it, but now firstly we subtract. I will tell you a bit later that right now why do we subtract first and then only divide. You will see probably in the next video, because then I will talk about actually how to solve these and some general rules about algebra. So you can say that 2x equals to 6, and you can divide by 2. It's a pretty ugly 2, but it's whatever. So you can divide by 2 and you can get that x equals to 3. Right, pretty nice, pretty nice. And now let's see our last problem for the day. What is this 5 plus x minus 2 times x equal to? Well, you could say that this is a interesting one. You want the x's on one side and you want the numbers on the other, so you see you have plus x here. Of course, you have other ways of solving this, but this is the easiest in my opinion. So you will get 5 equals to minus 2x minus 1x is minus 3x. And then you would have to divide each side, and this is one thing that you will see in algebra, and you should get familiar and friendly with it because it will occur very often. We divide by minus 3. Why do we divide by minus 3? Because x is multiplied by minus 3 right here. And if something is multiplied by minus 3, the way we get rid of that minus 3 from that is that we just divide by it. So what's 5 divided? So this will be 5 divided by minus 3 equals to x. But we usually don't write this in this form, that 5 divided by minus 3. We usually write 5 thirds and then put the minus sign here. It can also be in the numerator, for example. It means the same, but it's a bit easier to do it like this. And then there we go. We solved this one as well.